San Francisco?
Yeah.
Oh, man, I'm going to tell you about San Francisco. San Francisco ain't did a thing for me. I mean, ever since I got out of high school, I had a couple of jobs. I worked at a couple of hat companies and warehouses. I mean, after a while, they say, well, I guess we're going to lay you off for a couple of weeks, you know. All right, they talk about the South. The South is not half as bad as San Francisco. You want me to tell you about San Francisco? I'll tell you about San Francisco. The white man, he's not taking advantage of you out in public like they're doing down in Birmingham, but he's killing you with that pencil and paper, brother. When you go to look for a job, can you get a job? Can you get a job, Winkle?
This is the San Francisco Americans pretend does not exist. They think I'm making it up.
National Educational Television presents Take This Hammer.
Take this hammer.
This is a film report on a visit to the city of San Francisco by the novelist, essayist, and playwright James Baldwin. Mr. Baldwin's guide on this tour of the city is the Executive Director of Youth for Service, Orville Luster.
Take this hammer and tell it to the captain. You tell him I'm gone. You tell him I'm gone.
The drive from the airport into any American city looks pretty much the same. You could be anywhere. But for James Baldwin, this similarity goes deeper. On the drive into San Francisco, Baldwin began talking about the increasing bitterness, demoralization, and despair of Negro youths in northern cities. And it was decided that we would explore the existence of such attitudes and conditions in the city of San Francisco, with its widely advertised liberal and cosmopolitan traditions. Baldwin also talked about his concept of dues paying, or living up to one's responsibilities, and commented that many Northerners seem to feel that because they do not live in Mississippi, they are somehow paying their dues.
I think the truth is that everyone, on the one hand, is fundamentally capable of paying his dues. But no one pays his dues willingly, you know. And the white man, like the black man, like any other man on earth, can pay his dues if he realizes that that's what he's got to do. As long as you think there's some way to get through life without paying your dues, you're going to be bankrupt. Because the bill has come in. It's not coming in. It is in. And the great question now is precisely what we've got in the bank. This, of course, is everything we think we have. Everything. And Birmingham is an incident, you know, which may become a shrine. What is really crucial is whether or not the country, the people in the country, the citizenry, are able to recognize that there is no moral distance, which is to say no distance, between the facts of life in San Francisco and the facts of life in Birmingham. One's got to call it, you know, one's got to tell it like it is. And that's where it's at. I imagine it'd be easy if any white person walking through San Francisco to imagine that everything was at peace. Because it certainly looks that way on the, you know, on the surface. But San Francisco is much prettier than New York. It's easier to hide in San Francisco than it is in New York. Because you got the view, you got the hills, you got the San Francisco legend too, which is that it's so cosmopolitan and forward-looking. But it's just another American city. And if you're a black man, that means that's a very bitter thing to say. Children are dying here as they are in New York, and for the very same reason. But the city is a somewhat better place to lie about it. It's really all it comes to.
Nobody wants to destroy the image of San Francisco.
Behold the city.
Oh, yes. Yes.
I'd like to acquaint you with San Francisco as a whole, Mr. Baldwin, and I think mostly what that's being watched here today is something black. And young people go to school together, they graduate off the same stage, and then when it comes to jobs, the black face is not qualified. But they graduate, then my daughter have to go clean up the same girl's house that she graduates off the stage. As I say, the most thing that's being watched is the black face.
What we were talking about last night coming into the airport was the real situation of the Negroes in the city,
Yes.
as opposed to the image
That's right.
San Francisco would like to present.
Yes.
Well, why don't you tell me a little bit about it? I know a lot about New York, but I'm a stranger here. But to say, I'm sure the principle holds. I'm curious about the details.
Well, one thing about it, in this particular area, about 80% of the people in this area are Negro. This is a real large housing project. There's, as far as delinquency is concerned, we'll rank about 4. The job situation is bad. This is a real black belt of San Francisco. I think that the lady over to your left, Mrs. Nichols, is a good representative of one of the indigenous leaders in this area.
Tell me something which may sound like a stupid question, but it's a question I have to ask myself all the time. What precisely do you say to a Negro kid to invest him with a morale which the country is determined he shan't have? Or to spell it out more specifically, when dealing with a Negro kid and trying to insist that he know that he can do anything he wants to do, how do you make him believe it?
That's a difficult question. I think that one of the main things that we have to make him believe, they say everybody could be the president of the United States, and then this boy grows up and he comes up. By the time he gets 40 to 50 years old, he begins to find out that this is not true, and to make him be able to face what's coming to him in the future.
There's going to be a Negro president in this country.
There never will be a Negro president in this country. Why do you say that?
You can't get jobs, how are we going to be a president?
Got me. But I want you to think about this. That there will be a Negro president of this country, but it will not be the country that we are sitting in now. But if you say to yourself, there never will be a Negro president of this country, then what you're doing is agreeing with white people who say you are inferior. It's not important, really, whether or not there's a Negro president. I mean, in that way. What's important is that you should realize that you can become the president. There's nothing anybody can do that you can't do. Well, the truth is that I don't think it's an exaggeration, but I think the truth still is that even to get the most meager opportunity, you've got to be at least 5 times as good as anybody else around. 5 times as good, not only at the job, but this is what is so dangerous, I think. You have to have a certain, the boys that I grew up in the streets in Harlem. And now the survivors, what marks all the survivors is a certain ruthlessness which was absolutely indispensable if one were going to survive.
I can do it. I can do it. I can do it. Don't have to work. Don't have to work for nobody. And I can make it. Don't have to work. How do you make it? Tell me how I make it. This is something I'm going to tell there how I make it. I'm indicting myself, brother. I talk to you, and you go back to tell the police what I done did. I didn't say you would do it. Now, what you was talking that for? And so, I thought to you that I robbed the bank in Los Angeles. You believe that? Well, no, if you don't say you did. I ain't gonna say I did either.
The same kids we're talking about now, their real problem is they cannot find in the country any reason to accept anything the country says. And they're very young, so they can't find anything else either. And this is how they end up, for example, on the needle. It's a crime committed by one section of the populace against another section of the populace. And it's a crime which really could destroy this country. What do you think about the police?
I think they have a purpose, but then, again, the way some of these people do you sometimes when they pick you up and stop you. Well, like a couple of times we'd be downtown just walking around, they'd look at you. If you look suspicious, they would just stop you. Like I was going to show one night, me and my wife, and we just happened to go around Market Street, and we seen this police car go by. All right, we could turn the corner. The next corner, they meet us and they stop us. All right, the show starts at 7:45. We were out there till 9 o'clock. And then they didn't have no excuse to stop us, but they stopped us, searched the car, and called in and this and that. And what was the purpose of that? We weren't doing anything wrong. Nobody was mad. Let me ask you one thing. What do police do when they get mad?
What do the police do when they get mad?
I mean, we ordinary citizens, and we get mad, and we can do things to hurt people and rob and steal. What do they do when they get mad? Who do they take their steam off on?
I think you know the answer to that question.
Well, I couldn't answer that because the police has never bothered me in that way, but I read newspapers, and I've been living around here all my life, and I see things going on.
Mm-hmm. Well, when a policeman gets mad, he's got a gun and he's got a club.
He uses them too, don't he?
Yeah.
It's one thing that's the difference in San Francisco and Birmingham. It is that San Francisco is whitewashed.
Yes, precisely.
Yeah.
In San Francisco, it's under the rug.
Yeah.
You know, it hasn't hit the headlines yet. And everyone in San Francisco, every white person in San Francisco can pretend they haven't got a Negro problem. Everywhere I have been in this country, you talk to a white person who says racial relations are excellent, and I get to find a single Negro in this country who agrees with that.
And then if you'll ask that the Negro have a better opportunity, ask that the Negro be hired in a large firm, they'll reach out and hire one. That's to shut your mouth.
And put him in the window.
Well, Mr. Baldwin, I'd like to also say that Hunters Point seems to me, in my opinion, in my way I'm looking at it, Hunters Point is just like being in Alabama right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel that we don't, some of the ones that can't go down, we can march on San Francisco for the black man, to help the black woman. We can do that here because it has been stated that until we work on this, San Francisco and other areas, New York and all, Chicago and all around, that we can get something done. We can help our brothers in the South.
Yes.
Those, the black people in Alabama are my people.
Yes, yes.
Primarily, I'm from Texas.
Mm-hmm.
But anywhere in the South, anywhere a Negro, a black man is involved, I'm there.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the mother of 5 kids, the mother of a 9-week-old baby. But if the time comes where I can't march here in San Francisco, I certainly will beg Barry a ticket to go to Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
And I am ready.
You ought to get down and everything in my soul. That's something on it.
I suppose that no one in San Francisco has any sense of what a dangerous area this is.
And I think this is one of the real troubles, is that the Negro has, in San Francisco, he doesn't really know his place because it hasn't been really spelled out. I mean, he's trying to find his place, and it's so, you know, this is one of the problems, you know. I mean, what place is there for me, you know? He came out to escape. And then you keep trying.
Another prison.
That's right. You know, you find yourself facing the Pacific Ocean. You know, there's no place else to go.
Yes.
You know. Now you can see this is more residence. I mean, apartments and so forth. Coming down, we will soon be to Market Street.
The great problem is how in the world one is going to invest these children with a new morale, with some sense of their own worth. Because the country isn't going to do it. The country won't do it. I suppose one could say at the moment the country can't do it. It doesn't have much sense of its own worth.
We have no race to themselves. We have no race at all. We have no cut.
Flags? No.
No cut.
Who gonna back on this? White man?
Oh,
Slavery, bro.
Tell me what you mean.
Y'all don't need beg what you want.
Tell me what you mean.
what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm transplant.
Now we can talk, man. Now we can talk.
I'm transplant.
Talk, we.
I don't have nothing over here.
Go,
Don't have it, nothing.
Let go.
I don't have anything.
What a man is.
How long have you felt that way?
How long I felt that way? Since 1956.
Since 1956?
Yeah.
Why did you feel that way?
Huh?
Why did you feel that way?
Because I realized what a dog the white man was.
How did you come to realize that?
When he got to start jumping on me and putting me in jail and everything, you know.
Where did that happen?
Where?
Yeah.
Right here in San
Right here in San
Francisco,
Francisco?
California. Well, nothing.
Tell me how it started.
How it started?
Yeah.
What you mean how it started?
Tell me about the first time you were arrested.
First time I was arrested?
Yeah.
Well, that was,
Oh, the first
that was in 1948.
That was in 1948?
Yeah.
What for?
Well, I don't know what they call it, but I got caught in the bedroom with a little white girl. Juvenile.
Where was that?
Here in San
Francisco.
Yeah.
How old were you in 1948?
8.
What?
8.
Brother, what white man will catch on your knees, brother?
You were 8 years old.
Yeah.
You were 8 years old in 1948.
Yeah.
And you were caught in bed with a little white girl.
Yeah.
And you went to jail.
Yeah.
When you were 8.
Yeah.
In San Francisco.
Yeah.
Look at you, learn from the world you live in, brother. That's why man ain't teaching you in this book, but what you want to know. You ain't got to know nothing about it.
He's not even teaching me about the future of my people.
What you going to school for then, dummy?
We don't even have a country.
I know that.
Do we have a country?
He say United States is your country, which is not your country. What flag go on a black man's flag? You have no flag, brother. No flag at all.
The people, we not going to get nothing. Not by sitting around here doing these sitting demonstrations and nothing. People not going to do anything.
Well, how are we going to do it?
By violence. Violence.
And when
By
you say,
uprising, having a revolution.
but there are 20 million of us.
20 million. That's enough.
Not these days and not in those terms.
Oh, it's enough.
They're scattered. 48 states.
48 states, get them together.
How?
How? Through Islam.
What?
The true religion, you know? Get all the people together, get all them believing one thing, and then they can't help but stick together. I mean, we can't stick together now. Half of us Christians, the other half Baptists, you know, some Jews and all that. Now, what good is that going to do us?
Catholic. So you think the only thing we can do
is get together.
Have an armed uprising?
Really? Just put blood, you know, let everybody bleed a little bit. That's the only way we're going to get in this thing. What happened to the people in Birmingham?
Well, Birmingham isn't over yet.
Yeah, it's over. Oh, yeah, it's over. It's over. It's over. They done sent in the state troopers, the federal. That's all over now. People, they had a little, you know, little show Sunday night, you know. That was the only thing they did. When they was marching around in them thousands and thousands, wasn't nothing happening. They got mad Sunday. Jumped on a few of them. Sent a few of them to the hospital. And then what happened? They said, we're going to give you what you want, huh? Yeah. That ain't nothing. Ain't gonna get nothing.
Now, the Negro teenager doesn't have any possibility, as we sit here now, I mean, as of this moment, this is not historical, does not have any possibility of accepting American history, which is to say, has no way of learning it, because it has not been and it is not being taught. There is no possibility for him to begin to act on what we always like to think of as the American assumptions, you know, a man's a man for all that and all that jazz. It isn't that he wouldn't. It's because there's no possibility of his doing so, because the country intends to keep him in his place, and still does. So the only way a Negro teenager can make it is to step outside that system, you know, to become, in effect, a criminal on whatever level, you know, to become an operator, you know, like really to make it, or to turn to Malcolm X.
They trying to tear down our homes, brother. And when the white man try to tear down your homes, then it's time for you to do something. But what can we do? We don't know anything about what's going on. I mean, we try to go to the meetings and things like that. We watch the television. We watch all this about Birmingham down there. Just like Malcolm X said yesterday on television. He said the white man, he talk about truth and this man, Mr. King, he down there talking about, can we get some kind of, cooperation? Can we get some kind of truth down there? Or what are they doing down there? They're not doing anything. I'm calling him a chump, just like Malcolm X called him. He's a chump, and I think a black Muslim is right in some of his doings, and I think that a truce down there is impossible. It's utterly impossible. It's fantastic, and it's unbelievable. And I tell you this. Wait, let me tell you. Now, they're talking about better jobs. Jobs right here. You want to tell you what kind of job they're going to give us? They're going to let us tear down our own homes out here in Hunters Point. That's the job we're getting. And you know what they're going to pay us? Let me tell you what they're going to pay us. They're going to pay you $2 an hour, They're going to holler some kind of apprenticeship deal or something like that. Now, I mean, what else is that gaining you? It's not gaining you a thing. You won't get anything. They'll help you tear down your own homes. It's a job temporarily, and then what you going to do? Where you going to live? You're not going to live anywhere. They're not even in the process of trying to tell you where you're going to live. All they're talking about is tearing down Hunter's Point. How long have you been in San Francisco? Well, I've been in San Francisco about 18 years, ever since I was about a year or two old.
And you live around here, too?
Yeah.
You stay in temporary housing?
No, I stay in the project. That's a temporary house. It ain't no temporary house no more. They tearing them down.
That's you still in temporary housing, not the permanent housing.
Ain't no more. We ain't gonna be no place when they get through.
Tighten up, Brad.
We're gonna be living out on the street.
Does it make you feel bad?
Yeah, it make you feel bad. Won't be no place to go. We be living out here on streets and tents.
Well, where would you like to go if you could? What part of San Francisco would you like to go?
I like to stay up here on top of the hill.
You would? How long have you been living on top of the hill?
Ever since I've been born.
And then this is part of our redevelopment also.
What do you mean? You say redevelopment meaning
You mean
what?
the removal of Negroes?
Yes, that's what I thought you meant.
In other words, a lot of the Negroes who came because the Japanese were pushed out now are being pushed out themselves.
That's
right.
In effect, San Francisco is reclaiming this.
That's right.
This property.
That's right.
To build it up, which means Negroes have to go.
That's right. And
where are they going to go?
Well, they're going out to Hunters Point and to the Haight-Ashbury area and also into Ocean View, and wherever they can find reasonable rents.
Yeah.
South of Market and all these other places, wherever they can find cheap rent. In other words,
well, not only
going from one ghetto to the other.
Yes, yes. This is the Negro housing project, in effect.
Yes, well, there's a few Caucasians staying here, you know.
Uh-huh. Well, I know a lot about housing projects in New York. And I'm sure this doesn't differ at all.
No, housed there, some of the same problems, although the building, the exterior looks...
Well, the exterior looks marvelous. It's the whole point.
Yes.
You know. But I know what goes on inside. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm sure that in the housing project, I know the housing projects in New York, the kids despise them, you know. Better housing in the ghetto is simply not possible. You can build a few better plants, but you cannot do anything about the moral and psychological effects of being in the ghetto.
Yes, it is.
This is the point. Everybody living in those housing projects is just as endangered as ever before by all the things that a ghetto means. If I were raising a kid in one of those housing projects, I would still have at the front door, or probably right next door in the housing project, all the things that I was trying to escape. And I mean such things as, even from such things as dealing with insurance companies if I want fire insurance, you know, to the fact that in the playground, my boy and my girl will be exposed to the man who sells narcotics, for example, to a million forces which are inevitably set in motion when a people are despised. And you can't pretend that you're not despised if you are. You were saying yesterday that children can't be fooled. And I could be fooled, you know, and be glad about, you know, having a three-room, whatever it is, you know, smash mataz, terrace overlooking a garage. But my kid won't be. It's my kids that are being destroyed by this fantastic hypocrisy.
Now, this is the ILW housing project, which will be interracial. The people who are renting it now, 70% are Caucasian, 30% Negro. Then above that will be the Eichler homes and so forth. Eichler has always let Negroes buy if they had the money, although their apartments, their houses cost, say, from $22,000 up to $32,000. Yeah. So naturally, this automatically eliminates a lot of people.
I conclude that all this has something to do with money. The land has been reclaimed for money, and that the people who are putting up the houses expect to make a profit. Well, it seems to me, I'm not attacking what's called a profit motive. There are some things more important than profits. I know that New York City has been turned into a desert, really, for the same reason. And it's happening in San Francisco now. It's as though the society made the assumption, and certainly acts on the assumption, that to make money is more important than to have citizens. You're paying too high a price for this. Because it isn't only what it's doing to Negro children, which is, God knows, bad enough. It's what it does to white children, who grow up believing that it is more important to make a profit than it is to be a man. And that's the way that society really operates. I don't care what society says. This is what it operates, and these are the goals it sets. And these goals aren't worthy of a man. And adolescents know it.
Oh, are you working now, David?
No, I'm not.
Well, what has been some of your problems that you face as a Negro in San Francisco?
Well, my main problem is finding a job. Yesterday I talked to a guy, a white fellow that worked at a filling station. He been out of service 2 months and he got 2 jobs. I've been here 8 years and I worked about 3 steady jobs. And I look every day. Just like he said, he started out, he looked maybe once or twice a day, and he worked at a filling station and worked longshoreman work. And he told me from his own mouth who was on top. He didn't come out and say it just like I'm going to say it, but he come out and told me that you got to know somebody in San Francisco to get somewhere. And by knowing somebody, it's got to be somebody with authority. And nobody in San Francisco, no colored man, got no authority.
You know what I mean? There are no Negro leaders in San Francisco that you feel have any
there are
part
a few. There are a few.
Do you know any?
No, I don't know any. But the ones that get up there, they don't want to help nobody.
You know no one has ever helped you?
No, nobody with authority. Besides my parole officer.
Well, even the least damaged of those kids would have to put it as mildly as it can be put at the moment. Would have to be a little sardonic about the things he sees on television, what the president says, and all those movies about being a good American, and all that jazz. And you look at this, look over there, look up here, and he would despise the people, who are able to have such a tremendous gap between their performance and their profession. But the more damaged kids simply feel like blowing it up. Speaking only for myself, I feel a little sardonic. I'm civilized, I think. But there's a time in my life when I would have felt just like blowing it up. What's more crucial, what's more terrible is how, since one's in the main left alone in terms of any help you can get from the country in this effort, how you get through to the least damaged kids. And I don't know what I could say which would make any sense to them, because in fact this does not make any sense.
Now, with all of these beautiful buildings, now they're going to be ringed in by hostile people, just like you have in New York.
Hostile and frightened people. Because they don't want, they walk down the street and wonder why the first Negro boy they see looks at them as though he wants to kill them, and if he gets a chance, tries. And it's because he can't go to Asia, He can't, it's because he can't, he has no ground to stand here. The cat said yesterday, I got no country, I got no flag. And it isn't because he was born paranoid that he said that. It's because the performance of the country for his 18 years on Earth has proven that to him. Now, how one manages to make these people, these blind people, begin to see. I'll tell you something, baby, about that building. It has absolutely no foundation. And it really does not have any foundation. It's going to come down, one way or another. Either we will correct what's wrong, or it'll be corrected for us.
And this is
What was that?
the St. Mary's Cathedral. This bomb building here.
Yeah.
I mean, not bomb, but I mean this
It looks like
fire.
a bomb.
That was a fire. But this is going to be torn down, but this will not be the site of the cathedral. They're going to change it.
Really, it's horrible to look at.
Oh, yeah. This was started one night. They had some of the kids were having a dance in the downstairs basement. Didn't take it very long. They just gutted the whole thing. But as a result, the Catholic Church was able to raise $15 million to build another cathedral.
Some people know how to make it. I was raised a Christian. You know, my daddy and my mama were very religious. Many of the white Christians were not Christians because of the way they treated black people. And the Christian church in this country has never, in my experience, never as far as I know, been Christian. The record is much more than shameful. The record proves that as we stand here as of this moment, the Christian church is bankrupt. There's not a single person I could turn to if I were trying to deal with one of those boys we were talking to yesterday. If I tried to tell him to go to church or even suggested the name of Jesus Christ, he spit in my face. And it's not because he doesn't like my face. It's because of what white Christians have done and do and now deny. All of these churches are absolutely meaningless. They're almost blasphemous. If they don't mean it, they should say so. Christianity has become a kind of social club. You have to have a membership card to get in. And black people can't have a membership card. Actually, Christianity at the moment looks rather like that church. That shell.
The God shops, I mean, what place?
The God shops. I think the God shops, I know the God shops are there to console a whole lot of desperate people. What we can here call the failure of Christianity, really. You know, people in the God shops are there because it gives them it's only one of the few places they can go to find any way of getting through their day. Dealing with the landlord and pawnbroker and the children and the whole horrible complex of forces which bear you down every day. One can no longer accept this whole notion of heaven later, you know, concentration camp here. Oh, God. Next to the Morning Star Missionary Baptist Church.
Yes. This is one of the real little God shops.
White people have always thought that Negroes in churches singing and dancing and praying meant that they were really quite simple-minded and happier than white people. And what goes on in those God shops, you know, is exactly the same thing that's going on now in the Muslim temples, but no one has ever made that connection.
Off to our left here is one Negro hotel. That's all.
The only Negro hotel here?
Yes.
It's called the Booker T. Washington?
Yes.
Naturally. This is the street that all Negroes are born on. You know, the street all Negroes have to survive. Booker T. Washington, the Baptist Church, and the mosque. There's really a great history, you know, great thing to be summed up in that if one could.
Looking at this street now, the Booker T. Washington Hotel, I mean, what comes to your mind about some type of music or some passage from the Bible that describes this?
Sing the Lord's song in a strange land? I don't know. I'm sure those cats across the street can dance like, you know, their white counterparts can. And the reason they can is because in a way, they must. It's got to come out somehow. It's got to come out somehow, you know. And the pressure is great enough, it has to come out in a certain kind of... Negroes have great style. I think this is true, even if it sounds chauvinistic. And white people don't have much style. And one of the reasons the Negroes have a certain style is because they are aware of the conditions of their lives. They can't fool themselves about it, you know. And when a Negro laughs or tries to make love or eats or dances, it's a kind of total action. I don't mean this way white liberals are immediately going to think I mean it. I don't mean that they're more sensual, more primitive, more spontaneous, and all this ethnic jazz. I mean that they live on another level of experience, which doesn't allow them as much room for make believe as white people have.
Every American black man knows that there's something that American white men are in the grip of some extraordinary sexual paranoia. And they really are. What that comes from is probably a story for some other time and place. In any case, such a long and terrible story and so complicated that one couldn't begin to discuss it except by examining, if you like, you know, such things. Well, we read Huckleberry Finn. We read William Faulkner. The range between black and white men in this country has always been the most extraordinary there's something real in it and a terrifying invention in it. And it goes all the way back from the first time any American started writing. And it has something to do with the Indian. If one could crack that nut, really, you open that can of beans, if one could try to find out, and this is something white people have to do, Negroes can't do it, exactly what a Negro means to a white man. I don't mean what he means in terms of signing petitions and, you know, marching with picket signs and all that jazz. I mean what he really means. You know, why are you afraid of him? That's what it comes to. If one could begin to examine that, one might then begin to be able to deal with what is a really quite simple matter, relatively speaking. That is to say, if one could examine that, then the conundrum of the housing situation in San Francisco would not be a conundrum, because it is based on that. And all the lies Americans tell themselves and all the evasions that they give themselves are based on some fantastic escape, partly from Europe, and then from the Indian, and now, spectacularly, from me. It's insane. Well, white liberals think of themselves as missionaries. I had a kind of fight once with a fairly well-known white liberal. And I said in the course of my conversation something of Mr. Charlie. This is a man who's been around for a long, long time. And he said, "Who's Mr. Charlie?" And I was shocked that he didn't know, you know. And I told him who Mr. Charlie was. I said, "You're Mr. Charlie. All white men are Mr. Charlie." But liberals have protected themselves against this level of experience because their principal motive so far been, as far as I can tell, a kind of alleviation or protection of their own consciences. They want to do something to help Negroes because it makes them feel better. But the price that they paid for this kind of effort is that they have never discovered who a Negro is. Not what, but who. Only a liberal, for example, could write the script of the defiant ones. No Negro could, no. And only a liberal can be offended, as John Fisher at Harper's Magazine is offended, when, you know, when Negroes make some unmistakable indication that they're going to, that they don't want anymore. This is the record, you see. They really think that somehow the record of the Negro people's survival in this country is something on which they can congratulate themselves. And they don't know that for every one man who survived, 20 perished. And that whatever the Negroes managed to do here was done against the tremendous opposition of the power structure. I don't mean there weren't some white people who managed, you know. But in the generality, this is the way it's been.
Do you feel that the white liberal a lot of times that when the things gets real tough that he can escape? I mean, he can revert back tomorrow.
Oh, and the white liberals, when things get tough, a white woman liberal told me a few weeks ago, she had had the bad luck to be sitting in the same room with about 20 students who were telling like it is. Sterling Brown was there, and she was one of the few white liberals in the room. And what these kids were saying, in effect, was, you know, white people don't know enough about us to be able to help us. You know, white people say one thing and do another. And all of this is absolutely true. And she was terribly, terribly hurt, bitterly hurt. And she said, "I'm sure I've done more for the Negroes than they've ever done." And I got mad. And I said, "That's exactly what they were saying. They don't want you to do anything for Negroes. You know, they want you to do it for you." And she said, "Well, I'm not willing to damage my child," she said. And I said, "Well, then forget it." After all, speaking for myself, you know, it's kind of insult. Here I am, you know, as they say, no visible scars. I'm not isolated. I got a family, you know, and a history, and I got nieces and nephews. I can't protect them, you know. They're in tremendous danger every hour that they live, just because they're black, not because they're wicked, you know. And I mean this from the baby niece to the oldest nephew, who's only 16. Now, if this is where they are, you know, and I know that every time I leave my nephew, I don't know what'll happen to him by the time I see him again. I mean, not only inside, but physically. How can you expect me to take seriously somebody who says, "I'm willing to fight for you, but I can't afford to let my children I can't afford to let my children be damaged"? And furthermore, how can I take seriously somebody who doesn't realize that their children are being damaged by this, by the continuation of this system? You can't serve, as they say, two masters. And, you know, the liberal can't be safe and And heroic, too.
In other words, he want to become so safe that he gets behind the safety zone.
Yes, that's right. That's right. He's with you, but not when the going gets rough. And really, what I really mean at bottom is that he doesn't. If you can think of it in those terms, and you don't see the gravity of the situation. You don't see that we are living in a segregated society, and this does terrible things to my child, and does terrible things to your child too. If you don't see that, then I don't think you see anything. And most liberals do not see that. One of the great American illusions, one of the great American necessities, is to believe that I, the poor benighted black man whom they saved from the elephant-ridden jungles of Africa, and to whom they brought the Bible, is still grateful for that. And people say, in many, many ways, not only in the South, all over this country, in effect, you should be grateful. Even slavery, it released you from that. You're no longer dodging tsetse flies in some backward country. Well, I know this, and anyone who's ever tried to live knows this. So what you say about somebody else, you know, anybody else, reveals you. What I think of you as being is dictated by my own necessities, my own psychology, my own fears and desires. I'm not describing you when I talk about you. I'm describing me. Now, here in this country, we've got something called a nigger. It doesn't in such terms, I beg you to remark, exist in any other country in the world. We have invented the nigger. I didn't invent him. White people invented him. I've always known, I had to know by the time I was 17 years old, what you were describing was not me, and what you were afraid of was not me. It had to be something else. You had invented it, so it had to be something you were afraid of. And you invested me with it. Now, if that's so, no matter what you've done to me, I can say to you this, and I mean it. I know you can't do any more, and I've got nothing to lose. And I know, and I've always known, you know, and really always, that's part of the agony. I've always known that I'm not a nigger. But if I am not the nigger, and if it's true that your invention reveals you, then who is the nigger? I'm not the victim here. I know one thing from another. And I know I'm going to born and I'm going to be, you know, I was born, I'm going to suffer, and I'm going to die. And the only way you get through life is to know the worst things about it. I know that a person is more important than anything else. Anything else. I learned this because I've had to learn it. But you still think, I gather, that the Negro is necessary. Well, he's unnecessary to me, so he must be necessary to you. So I give you your problem back. You're the nigger, baby, he isn't me.